When you finish Genesis 4, you realize this isn't just a story about the first murder. It's a story about the first human heart that couldn't handle the truth. Cain was the first child born into the world, the first one to take a breath outside of the garden, the first one to feel what it was like to be watched, taught, corrected, expected to live up to something. He grows up alone, the only child, the firstborn, the one who naturally assumes the position of importance. And for a long time, that probably worked. No competition, no comparison, no pressure, except being the first of everything. But then Abel was born, and Cain now has to share a world he was once alone in, share attention, share responsibility, share identity. Nothing in this chapter says they hated each other growing up. The problem didn't start with brotherhood. It started with worship. God didn't reject Cain as a person. He rejected Cain's approach. Cain brought what he wanted. Abel brought what God required. And in that moment, Cain saw himself for the first time, not as the firstborn, not as the older brother, not as the important one, but someone who needed correction. Some people can hear correction and grow. Cain heard correction and got offended. God tried to reason with him. If you do well, you'll be accepted. But if you don't deal with this, sin is crouching at your door. That verse shows everything. God wasn't condemning him. He was warning him, coaching him, offering him a second chance before sin swallowed him whole. But Cain didn't deal with it. He carried the anger. He carried the comparison. He carried the embarrassment of being corrected in front of someone who did it right. And instead of going back to the altar and fixing his offering, he went to the field and fixed his anger on Abel. Cain thought killing Abel would silence the problem. He didn't realize the problem was in him, not beside him. When God asked, "Where's your brother?" Cain gives off one of the coldest responses in Scripture. "Am I my brother's keeper?" That's what pride sounds like after it hardens. God doesn't strike Cain dead. He let him feel the weight of his own choices. Cain loses his work, his land, his home, his stability, even his sense of belonging. He became a wanderer, a drifter, a man always moving because he never dealt with what was moving inside of him. And the chapter ends with a contrast. Abel's blood cries out to God, but Cain's life cries out for mercy. Here's the heavy truth. Genesis 4 is trying to show us. You can't avoid God's correction. You can't blame your anger on other people. You can't attack the reminder and think the root disappears. And you can't outrun the sin you refuse to confront. Cain didn't fall in a moment. He fell because he let pride sit, let jealousy grow, let correction irritate him instead of transform him. Sin didn't knock him down. He opened the door. And by the end of this chapter, the first family of the world already shows us what happens when a heart refuses to bow. Worship becomes competition. Correction becomes offense. Anger becomes violence. And exile becomes the result. Genesis 4 isn't just history. It's a mirror. It asks, what do you do when God corrects you? Who do you get angry at? What do you attack instead of fixing? What sin is crouching at your door that you keep pretending isn't there? That's the weight of this chapter. This is the anatomy of the heart that refuses to surrender.